Hi, this is Rich Lyons, and I'm living after faith. You'll notice somebody's missing today. There's a reason for that. My lovely wife, Deanna Joy, has a case of laryngitis, so she is sitting by my side but not able to talk very well.
I'm here, but I'll be back soon. Don't worry.
Yeah, so she's here. First, I want to say some thank yous. I want to thank the Atheist Experience. We were recently on their program, and a lot of you have joined because of that. We welcome you here. Thank you very much for joining. I also want to thank Dr. Darrell Ray. His book is The God Virus, and his website is recoveringreligionist.com. And we talked with Dr. Ray during the program with the Atheist Experience, and it was just great to meet him, and you'll be hearing more from him. In fact, we hope to have him on the podcast maybe as soon as a week or two, so keep listening for that. Anyway, want to welcome our new listeners, and thank you for joining us. Today, I just want to talk a little bit about the process itself of coming out of Christianity into being an atheist. Part of my motivation for the podcast today has to deal with a lot of the letters, emails, comments on blog posts, comments we've received on Facebook. A lot of the response we've had deals with PTSD. And that also happens to be the most popular podcast we have out there, the most listened to podcast, is the one about PTSD. And I want to give you just a little bit of information about PTSD today, how it affected me, some of the things that I found that were good for me, and some of the ways that I recognized that I had PTSD. As you know, most of you, I was dating a woman who was actually a shrink, and she recognized some of the symptoms. But once I began to realize what they were, I thought I was just nuts. But once I began to realize what they were and could recognize those symptoms in myself, then I began to get to a place that I could start to manage my symptoms myself. And a lot of the people who I've heard back from say things like, oh, wow, I had no idea that meant I could have PTSD. Wow, I had no idea that was actually a symptom for something. Let me just sit and talk about PTSD itself. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is something that originally they called it shell shock. They noticed it after one of the world wars, and that some of the soldiers who came back were really messed up. And it was an emotional, mental situation that doctors at that point didn't know how to deal with. They just thought that they were an old shell-shocked veteran. Well, come a few wars down the line, Vietnam. So many homeless people you see today were Vietnam veterans. They're not lying, but well, some of them are. But so many of those people really have PTSD. It makes them non-functional in society. They can't hold down a job. They can't do so many other things. And they wind up homeless. They're begging for money. And they're reliving a war that ended decades ago. But they can't break out of what it is. They're learning now, the military's done a lot of research, and they're learning now that with some treatment, with some therapy, they can help you a lot. Some of the symptoms, and I get this from the Mayo Clinic. I'll have a link posted adjacent to the blog, so you can click that link, livingafterfaith.com, and you can go to this site. It'll list some of the symptoms, but number one, having recurrent nightmares. And that has been by far and away the number one symptom people have told me about. They've described their nightmares, and they sound very similar to the ones I had. Situations involving friends who've left them, situations involving phenomenal pressure where you're in a religious situation and you don't want to do what you find yourself in, and just simple flashback dreams where you relive traumatic situations that you experienced while you were in the church or while you were coming out. Part of the bad thing about this is every time you have that dream, it re-traumatizes you. And they explained it to me, and I may not get all the details right here. You can get yourself someone who's a pro at this. But what I learned and what they told me is it's your brain at a brainstem level trying to work out what's wrong, trying to take that bad situation and relive it, and this time maybe come out with a better result so that you're not damaged from it. The problem is it's done at a brainstem level, and your brainstem can't make things work out right. So it twists things, it makes them bizarre, it makes them strange. But the bottom line is you wake up in a total panic. You wake up feeling like it's all happening to me all over again. You wake up feeling like there's no escape from what's going on inside my own brain. The ones that got me the worst was when I woke up in a total panic, running through the house, trying to find out what was wrong, only to realize I had no idea. I didn't remember the dream. I had nothing. I was just in this intense panic, heart pounding, fear that you can't even explain, anger that's just over the top, and all of this going through all at once, and the confusion around it. Other symptoms listed: acting or feeling as though the traumatic event were happening again, sometimes called a flashback. And I can take you to a church in Pasadena, California. I had gone there for the Tournament of Roses parade to Pasadena, went to a church service with a friend the next day, and in that service they sang that song. You know the song I'm talking about, the one that was kind of the battle anthem of the church I was in. Isn't it weird? Churches have to have battle anthems. But anyway, that's what it was. As they sang that song, Lord, I give you my heart, I remember the intense feeling saying, these people have no clue what that's going to cost them. They don't know. And the next thing I remember is I was curled up in a ball in an SUV in a fetal position, and the woman that I was with asked me, what did they do to you? And that question seemed so invasive, like she was trying to steal something from within me to expose me. Yeah, I know it doesn't sound so bad when you're sitting here thinking, what did they do to you? It's someone trying to comfort you, but you forget I was in that panic, that stage of not knowing where I was and not understanding what was happening. Having strong feelings of distress when reminded of the traumatic event. You can probably hear that in my voice right now. Being physically responsive, such as experiencing a surge in your heart rate or sweating, just simply to reminders of the traumatic event. These are actual symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. And much to my surprise, I'm probably not the only person who escaped religion who has experienced those and still does to date. And some of the symptoms are treatable. Some of them can be mitigated. Some people, it varies with the individual and with the trauma involved. Some of the symptoms may be with you even for the rest of your life, but I've been fortunate. I've come through a lot, and I believe you can too. Avoidance symptoms. You know, sometimes you just can't make yourself do stuff. Sometimes that's lazy, but not all the time. Making an effort to avoid thoughts, feelings, or conversations about the traumatic event. I can remember for the first, 2-3 years that I worked at a new job, nobody even knew I'd ever been a pastor before. It was when Hurricane Gustav lined up on the coast of Louisiana, looked just like Katrina there for a few days. A local television station was looking for someone in our area, in Seattle area, who had firsthand experience with Katrina. And in talking with some people, they pegged me. The reason that they pegged me is because I was a relief chaplain during the Katrina situation. It counseled probably around 1,500 people. So the television station interviewed me, and the next day at work, everybody's like, I didn't know you were a preacher. You, a preacher? It was something I didn't want to talk about. I avoided that at all costs. Other avoidance things, making an effort to avoid places or people that remind you of the traumatic events. I remember the first time I went to my church after I resigned, the lovely Deanna Joy, at that time just my friend Deanna Joy, not my wife Deanna Joy, same person, was sitting at her computer, and I was there with my telephone taking her on a tour of my hometown with doing the video clips on Ustream. And I would show a clip and explain things and talk about it. And in part of that trip, I went back to the church, and I felt like I could do that because I had her with me and she could help me out. If you've had those situations where you're avoiding things because you're afraid of the trauma, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a symptom. Just like if you had symptom for cancer or something, you wouldn't be, oh, gee, I'm sorry, I've got cancer. No, it's a symptom of something that's wrong. Having a difficult time remembering important parts of the traumatic event. How about this? I founded a church that spoke Spanish because it's in Texas, and there's a very large Spanish-speaking population. In that process, not only did I learn to speak Spanish, I learned to preach in Spanish and preach several times a week in the Spanish language. Today, I can't speak Spanish, can't understand it. The best I can do for you is this. Uno más cerveza, por favor. Baños? Baños? That's it. That's all I know. The Spanish I spoke there was one more beer, please, and where's the bathroom? So that's kind of loosely translated. Okay, very loosely translated. Anyway, I lost a language. Loss of interest in important, once positive activities. SEX. That's the number 2 thing people have talked about when they've communicated with me is, tell us more how you dealt with the sex thing, because that's killing me. We have another episode. We would be doing that right now if the lovely had her voice, but that's just a subject I can't go into without her because she is the awesome one who knew things that just blow my mind. Feeling distant from others. Whoa. How many times have I read on emails here, someone says, I just can't connect with people anymore. And I understand that. I was in a relationship, a long-term relationship, well, 2 years, that's kind of long-termish, where I actually was living with a person. We had a weird situation, okay? We lived at her place sometime and sometime at mine. We both had our own places, but we always were in the same place at the same time, just different places. Does that make sense? Okay. For 2 years, finally this situation came to a head and it needed to go away. And I remember thinking, this doesn't bother me to lose her. I could walk away from anything because I couldn't connect to anything or anyone. These are just some of the things. It's on the Mayo Clinic's website, and I'll give you a link to that you can find. Feeling as though life may be cut short. That's amazing. My lovely wife just reminded me when we first met, I didn't have really anything in my apartment. I had a bed, I had a chair. I think I had 2 chairs, a table. I had some things people had given me. I'd lost everything again. And the bed didn't even have sheets. It had kind of a blanket that I had wrapped around for a lower sheet and something, I forget what it was I had on the top, maybe like a comforter, but it didn't really even have sheets and blankets and things. I remember when we went out, picked out some bedding, with the bottom sheet and the sheet that goes over that and the blanket and the pillowcase, everything. It was very, very nice. And I almost freaked out. She said, "What is wrong? It looks nice. It's good." I remember thinking, it's too permanent. I can't let myself attach to it. I'll lose it. I can't let myself attach to it. It won't be here. I won't have this forever. And I can't let myself enjoy it. Wow, that hurts because relationships, I back away. I would get to but I would back away. Knowing people, friends, people want to be friends. And I would get close enough to back away because I can't have this. It's going to go away. PTSD. Hyperarousal symptoms. Have a difficult time falling or staying asleep. I can remember sitting in the bed up against the corner of the wall with my feet drawn up and my arms around my knees, trying not to go to sleep because I knew the terrifying dreams would come. And I knew that they were just dreams, but at the same time, if you've ever had one of these dreams, you don't want to live that again. You don't want to experience that again. And I can remember being terrified. I would fall asleep kind of curled up in a ball, trying to protect myself. Mind running 1,000,000 miles an hour, thinking about nothing. I remember there were times I felt like I was in a giant stadium when everyone was screaming, except every one of those people screaming was a thought that was screaming in my head. And trying to focus on any one of them would be like standing in the middle of that field, trying to focus on what somebody was saying. And they're all screaming at the same time, and you can't hear it. You can't understand it. It's just so much chaos in your own brain. Kind of sounds crazy, but, I don't wake up like that anymore. I don't go to sleep like that. Am I afraid to go to sleep?
Hell no, you're afraid not to go to sleep.
I love the ability to sleep, and I'm doing quite well at that. Feeling more irritable or having outbursts of anger. I've had anger issues, and I was able to tone it down once I accepted the fact that there was no God, and I could live like that knowing that there is no God. I was so angry at God, and then once I realized there could be no God, I thought, now who are you angry at? Are you angry at the people who did you wrong? I thought about it a bit. No, I'm not angry at them. I mean, I understand they were deceived just like I was. No one should have been angry at me because I deceived them, because I was deceived. And once I began to understand the truth, I tried to explain to people, and some caught it, some didn't, but I did the best I could. So those people who hurt me really weren't trying to hurt me. What they were doing is exactly what religion brainwashed them into doing. So it wasn't their fault. I couldn't be angry at them. There's no God. I couldn't be angry at him. So I stepped it back. Who are you angry with, Rich? I was angry at me because I felt like an idiot to get trapped into something that was so destructive, took so much of my life, and left me with so little as far as me as a human was concerned. So I did something really radical. It's going to sound way too religious for you, and I don't even like the way it sounds either. I forgave myself. I gave myself permission to make mistakes, even if those mistakes hurt me. So I made my mistakes. I hurt myself. But now I give myself permission to make a mistake. And you know what? When I make a mistake, it doesn't hurt near as bad because I can say, I said these 3 words to a woman one time, and she stopped in her tracks, turned around, and said, I've never heard a man say that before. I said, I was wrong. I give myself permission to say those words, even if I'm just speaking them to myself. And that helped a whole lot. Having difficulty concentrating, feeling constantly on guard, like danger is lurking around every corner. One of my coworkers, great guy, kind of noticed that I would have things going on, and he would stop and remind me. He would say, Rich, people here like you. Nobody here is out to get you. And just understanding, just have it called to my attention that I'm creating this world where the whole world hates me and everybody's out to get me. It was eye-opening. It helped me change. Being jumpy or easily startled. Speaking to me in modified dork sign language, I would be so focused on things that somebody could call my name and I would literally jump up, just like that. There's some symptoms here: accelerated heart rate, easily startled. They're things that can have very physical effects on you. So I kind of explained, and you can go to the website and see what it is. Treatments for those, your own doctor is going to have to give you your treatment. I can't do that. I can't emphasize enough the importance of a good therapist. And when I say a good therapist, number one, and some people will disagree, steer clear of Christian therapists, of Christian counselors, even ones that people say they won't try to proselyte, they're good, because basically they come from a foundation of faith. And that foundation of faith is what you're trying to avoid, you're trying to leave. And I had one Christian therapist actually say, hey, look, I can't help you. And that was good. I was glad he was honest about that. But you're coming to a place that a Christian therapist can't help you. Now, a lot of them will work for free, but bad help isn't worth free. It will cost you more in the long run. When you're looking for a therapist, you want someone who is very experienced with PTSD. If they have worked with cult recovery before, that's excellent. You say, well, I wasn't in a cult. Christianity as a whole is a cult. And coming out of that, I was very fortunate. My shrink was also a skeptic and an atheist and totally understood the entire process. So that was very good for me. I know a lot of this podcast has talked about negative things, been kind of on a downbeat note, but it's really not downbeat. What I'm really trying to get across today is that it's possible to get better. And my life is better today. I'm a happy man. I live a wonderful life. I'm in a place in life now where I do have friends that I can connect with. And it does matter to me if a friend is unhappy with me or dissatisfied with me. I'm in a place now that I don't feel like the world is against me. In fact, I love the world that I live in and realize I have a whole lot of power in creating and developing the world for myself so that I can surround myself with people that care about me and that I care about and do things that I enjoy. There was a time in life I couldn't enjoy the fact that I was alive. It hurt just to live. And these days, I startle a little bit here and there, and sometimes I have a little bit of avoidance or a few other things that are reminders of what was behind me, but that's really all they are right now, is reminders of what I've come through. And I wouldn't choose to go through it for the world, but the fact that I have gone through it has made me, I gotta say it, a better person. It's made me more compassionate towards other people, and it's put me in a place where I really respect and appreciate the life that I do have. So you wanted some stuff about PTSD. No, actually, most people really wanted to talk about sex. I'm not going to do that without Deanna. So as soon as she gets her voice back, I'm going to strap her in front of the microphone, and we're going to just make ourselves talk about sex. But until then, thanks for listening to us. I'm Rich Lyons. Come laugh with me.